When a murderer is convicted, our first assumption is that the person is just a psychopath. Psychopathy is a disorder where individuals lack any capacity for guilt, remorse, or regard for the feelings of others. In most prisons, a small number of inmates do not exhibit any emotions such as love or fear. There are around 20 ways of identifying a psychopath, but the three most common are lying, lack of remorse, and superficial charm. This is useful information when analyzing those that are behind bars. But what about those that mingle with everybody else in their daily lives? Psychopaths often look and act just like ordinary people. Notorious serial killer Ted Bundy is the prime example. He murdered 20 victims over 4 years and looked like anything but a killer. He used his good looks and charming ruses where he would pretend to have a broken arm and need great assistance. Through this, he was able to go after middle-class girls and essentially walk them to their death. Psychologist Dorothy Lewis interviewed Bundy for 7 hours and diagnosed him as a manic depressive. His murders took place during his depressive episodes. The pathology may have been due to his relationship with his grandfather, Samuel Cowell, a church deacon who was discovered to have a large stash of pornography that was of violent nature, including rape and torture. Bundy's grandmother, Eleanor, suffered from depression as well and regularly received shock treatment for this depression. This tragic background only meant that as an adolescent man, Bundy was socially awkward and never properly fit in. That is, until he attended college and met Stephanie Brooks. Given his personality, Stephanie rejected Bundy. This was the seed for his anger, which grew over the years. After a long killing spree in several states, the FBI was able to catch Bundy and analyze him. Bundy had targeted victims that looked just like Stephanie Brooks and murdered them brutally. He raped and killed all his victims and then evolved into a necrophiliac. High-profile serial killers like Ted Bundy reveal one important detail. Sometimes those that choose to inflict harm on others are not just necessarily psychopaths. There are deeper mental issues that need to be analyzed, and this is of great importance as people like Ted Bundy exist in the world around us. Ignoring the signs from an early stage can evolve into very tragic consequences. Let's look at Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber. He was responsible for a series of mall bombings where 3 people were killed and several others were injured. For the Unabomber, it was not about the actual killing, but it was about the attention he earned from the public. He was a child prodigy with an IQ of over 167. However, he was frequently bullied as a child and had a strong fear of people. Although he was accepted to Harvard at the mere age of 16, Kaczynski withdrew himself and went to live with his parents where he taught himself the basic survival skills. Over time, he realized that this was a difficult lifestyle to maintain because of urban modernization. His final straw was drawn when his favorite hideout was covered with construction. Kaczynski decided to take revenge on the system and released a series of mall bombings which lasted for a period of 20 years. When this case became of interest to the FBI, Kaczynski received the name of the Unabomber, otherwise the University Airline Bomber. After he was caught, psychologists realized that the Unabomber was extremely narcissistic and was convinced of his superiority, especially with his intellect. He had released a manifesto during his killing spree, and through it, it was determined that he had had an unhappy childhood. After a rigorous interrogation, it was determined that Kaczynski's brain was tricking him into believing that he was somebody vitally important to the course of history. This only proves that serial killers had traumatic experiences in their lives that was simply ignored by the general public and by the people around them. If they were given the proper help they deserved or could properly channel their feelings, it is possible that those innocent lives could be saved. Which draws the following question. Not to say that the actual actions of murder should go unpunished or unrecognized, but what if the state recognized an accused's past as a mitigating factor for the sentencing? As children, both Bundy and Kaczynski were ignored and suffered through these consequences. If these warning signs were taken care of in advance, then there is the possibility that these murders would have never taken place. Additionally, if these warning signs were something that society was trained to look out for, then they would essentially create an early prevention system that could decrease murder rates in the future. While killing another human being can never be justified, maybe we should take a step back and look at the serial killers around us. Their damaged backgrounds have resulted from their family homes being broken. This presents a bigger and longer problem. Children from abusive homes tend to lash out at some point of their lives. Ignoring this problem is only nurturing this kind of behavior in society. Children are easier to mold and can be clearly told what is right and wrong. Attempting to correct that behavior for an adult is relatively difficult and leads to larger social problems in the future. If the states recognize bad psychological past as a mitigating factor, they are creating an educational system whereby psychologists and other specialized experts are able to note trends and relate this information to society. This is of great importance as states will be cultivating a culture whereby its people can recognize these trends from an early stage and refer these potential psychopaths to the competent authorities in order for them to receive the help that they need. As members within a state, it is the government's responsibility to look after the well-being of all its people. Therefore, if the state were to recognize bad psychological past as a mitigating factor for an accused serial killer, then it is creating an environment where people are allowed to look out for each other and note these trends before another innocent life is lost.